The Honourable James Shaw. Question to Honourable James Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance. Does she stand by the principle in her government's coalition agreements that, quote, decisions will be based on data and evidence, end quote?
Yes, I stand by the full principle in the coalition agreements, which is that, quote, decisions will be based on data and evidence with programs regularly assessed to see if they are delivering results.
In that case, does she stand by her statement that she has, quote, seen evidence that the living costs of lower-income New Zealanders are based on a range of things, end quote? And if so, what data and evidence has she seen that increasing bus fares will lower the living costs of low and middle-income New Zealanders?
I have seen information, which I would hope the member would also have access to, which shows that living costs consist of a range of things. Bus fares are one of those things. A very important factor is also what people's after-tax incomes are. And this is a government that is committed to lifting after-tax incomes, including by delivering income tax reduction next year.
So is she saying that increasing bus fares will decrease the cost of living for low and income New Zealanders?
That is not what I said. What I said is that we are a government that is committed to addressing the cost of living across a range of factors, including ensuring that people have higher incomes, including those who use buses.
What data and evidence has she seen on how much rents will decrease by and when as a result of the changes to the Bright Line test?
The Bright Line test, having been extended to 10 years, has had the effect of stopping some people selling their properties because they are trying to avoid that tax. I've not seen any evidence that extending the Bright Line test to 10 years lowered rents.
What data and evidence has she seen on how much money will be returned to the pockets of New Zealanders by reducing the transparency of our tax system by repealing the tax reporting bill?
I reject the assertions in the member's question. We have a very transparent tax system. We don't need a silly bill that makes IRD write silly reports.
So how much money will each New Zealander receive as a result of the repeal of the Act?
The purpose of the repeal of the Act was not to deliver direct money to New Zealanders. It was consistent with our coalition's view that government should be focused on priorities. And that member was a member of a government that wrote endless reports about everything, and very little was delivered. We're going to be quite different.
Supplementary, the Honourable Grant Robertson.
Does she agree with National MP Miles Anderson, who said, quote, "You would think if you were going to do tax cuts that they would be best to come in on the 1st of April, wouldn't you, at the beginning of the tax year? So maybe they will be addressed in this mini-budget. They'll need to be included anyway. And if not, what message does she have for Mr Anderson?"
My message for Mr Anderson is congratulations on winning your fine seat. You are going to be a fine representative, and I believe you will be someone who will stand up for farmers, the productive economy, those who run tourism operations and those who create jobs and incomes in this country. So keep up the good work.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. Supplementary to the Minister. Is Miles Anderson correct that any tax cuts should be addressed in the mini-budget, and why weren't they?
I think Miles Anderson is correct that New Zealanders yesterday enjoyed learning that this government in just 3 weeks has made a $7.5 billion down payment on tax relief, that we remain committed to delivering tax relief in July next year. And I think New Zealanders are also of the view that while Grant Robertson is obsessed with the arcane details of IRD tax programs, actually we're a government that's getting on with it.
Question number 6, in the name of the Honourable Dr Megan Woods.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister of Finance, does the government intend to implement the National Party's climate dividend policy? If so, will all the funding currently tagged to the Climate Emergency Response Fund be used to pay for it?
In answer to the first part of the question, yes, and consistent with our coalition agreements, this will be subject to final consideration and decision-making by Cabinet. In answer to the second part of the question, the mini-budget yesterday confirmed decisions to enable the climate dividend, including returning funding from the Climate Emergency Response Fund, returning funding from the Government Investment in Decarbonising Fund and the National Land Transport Fund.
Supplementary, Mr Speaker. Will every household receive an equal split of the total dividend funding pool adjusted for household size?
As the member would know if she had read the climate dividend policy, which she referred to in her primary question, it is our intention that the climate dividend be used to support income tax reduction.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. Will the climate dividend scale with the carbon price?
The member would have to repeat her question.
Certainly. Will the climate dividend scale with the carbon price?
I am not sure what the member is referring to. The climate dividend is intended to be the proceeds of the emissions trading scheme, and we intend that those proceeds will be used to support income tax reduction.
Supplementary, Mr Speaker. Does she agree with the Treasury over the long term the total cost of achieving emissions reduction targets and addressing the impacts of climate change will be significant and is likely to exceed provisions made in the forecasts?
Well, the government is committed to meeting our climate change commitments, and we, as part of our mini-budgets, we considered the climate implications of returning funding from different initiatives, including GIDI and the Clean Car Discount. We also considered how decisions might impact our ability to meet future emissions budgets. From the advice I have received, I do not expect mini-budget decisions to pose a significant risk to achieving our first emissions budget.
What about EB2? Supplementary, Mr Speaker. Isn't it true that she has no intention of meeting any recognised criteria of a climate dividend with her so-called climate dividend, and what it is no more than a raid on funding for emissions reduction spending to fund her tax cuts?
That's right.
No, and I'll tell you what I won't do either. Raid money from hard-working New Zealanders to give big cheques to profitable businesses like BlueScope Steel and Fonterra. Hard-working Kiwis deserve that money.